Hello, this is the Marcus Allen Frishman Show. We are here for another week. How are you going? Talk to us.
Well, Archie, thank you for having me. And of course, I'm Marcus Allen Frishman. This is my show, and you're not. Here I am.
Thank you so much.
You know, there was some confusion by you of the time to start the show, because as you know, the world's greatest power, America, Donald Trump, we decide what time it will be. The universe doesn't do it. God doesn't do it. It isn't set by Meridian Standard Time. It is whatever we say it is. And so we've changed the time by 1 hour. We call it daylight savings time. And we just automatically put our clocks back and forward at a certain day of the year. So it is just after 6 p.m. Meridian time. That's Pacific time for those that live in Yorba Linda. And here I am on time for the show.
Fantastic. That's great. That's great, Marcus. It doesn't matter. We can easily work with you any which way. Don't.
Now, you know, Donald Trump tomorrow could decide that it is not going to be 6 o'clock in 24 hours. It might be 8 p.m. Who knows? We live by day.
Day by day. That's exactly it.
He's running the show, and he's busy running Venezuela, and he will soon be running Cuba, and he will defer to the Iranian people to run their own country very shortly.
Yes, that's the way to do it there. How? Tell me this, Marcus. You were away last week.
Yes, I had issues. I had things I had to do, and I could not do the show. And I gave you short notice because
that's perfectly okay. We're very flexible here.
I was sure, but I could not. I apologize to all of our 7 viewers. No, excellent.
I've got to say to you, I may be taking a little bit of time off.
Oh.
On the 28th, I'm going overseas, so I'm just going to see how the internet is. Is
the 28th, a Sunday, our usual call time?
Yes. Well, it's not. It's 28th is my Sunday. You're still on the 14th, aren't you?
I'm on the 14th at 6 p.m. Sunday.
Yeah.
You're
6 p.m. Saturday, or what day is it for you now?
Confused myself now. It's Saturday, March 14th, 6 p.m. Meridian time. Daylight savings time.
Tell me this, what's happening in America now? What is going on?
Well, you know, the People's Republic of California and the People's Republic of Los Angeles are kind of, let's just say, different than most of America. But they're the 4th largest economy of the world in the lineup of countries. We are insulated from the golden age of Donald Trump here in California. So our gas prices rise while gas prices have collapsed nationwide, except for certain, let's just say, blue states. We're getting a little political than we should normally. But, you know, I have a great personal story if we're up to it.
Sure,
unless there's something else on the agenda. We didn't have an agenda.
No, please.
So, as you know, I moved from what I call Royal Lodge in a gated community in Los Angeles to a beach pad, a near beach pad. I'm not actually on the beach, in an apartment that I'm actually renting. And my goal was to rent my home out for this extraordinary amount of money, considering the brokers, when I surveyed them, had a lineup of waiting lists for my neighborhood. It's because of location more than the individual home desirability. But the point is, and I wasn't going to sell it, and that has all collapsed. It has collapsed. So I'd like to reveal, and you just tell me if I need to be censored.
No, please reveal.
Lawsuits by banks. You know, banks are just evil.
Yes.
Donald Trump as a working group in his first term to break up the banks and to put the local branches of Bank of America, Citibank, other major banks in the hands of some rich people. $25 million, you could buy a branch, and the government would force the breakup of
Yes.
thus selling the branches individually. It's an idea he has no time to pursue because of so many more politically difficult situations, and fighting the banks is quite a battle. So I have been fighting the banks. So the point is, Donald Trump didn't do it successfully. That's okay. Maybe next time. But I did. So I bought this home to order. It was built for me, not the one I'm in, where I came from, where I've been at, in 2004. And I bought it from the second largest builder in California.
Yeah.
At that time in California, we had a real estate booming market, 2003 to 2006, I think. And sale was outdoing the previous price points. And I went to a builder to buy a home, and they made homes available in units of 15, and you would order them and customize them. And you'd stand in a line of 300 people. And you had to have a $20,000 certified funds check developed. You had to be prepared that day to sign the contract, and 15 names would be drawn from about 300 people. And I stood in that line all day in the midst of summer and winter, actually, ending winter, January, I think. And it was just terrible. I didn't get picked. So you wait 3 more months, and they open up another lot, and you go again. And I paid someone to stand in line that time, and they didn't get picked. And then I realized, because I'm, was well connected, I don't like to call in silver bullets or use favors, but we reached out to the owner of the second largest builder in the country. And Nate Chappelle was his name, Chappelle Industries. I won't say the name of the builder right now, but Chappelle Industries is the greater builder, the greater company. And he met with me and a friend of mine, and he said, Mr. Frishman, you can have this, and we're going to give you an employee discount. I get a call from Joanne in the model home and said, Marcus, the vice president just called. Come on down and sign the papers. Bring your certified funds check, which had expired already. I had to get a new one. But the point is, I buy this beautiful place, 12 rooms, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, at an exorbitant amount of money because, it's the peak of the California market in 2005 before the collapse. And I was so busy being a government career-appointed constitutional officer and official, and then eventually California's ambassador to the Philippines for 5 years, I didn't have time to enjoy it. But I did live there. My dog lived there. My girlfriend came and went occasionally. She was my Belinda of 14 years. And then in 2009, 2000 and maybe even 7, I get a letter. Archie, and it says, it's from Bank of America, with signed seal and approval of the federal government, and it says, you have been a victim of countrywide mortgage. Your mortgage is a bad mortgage. They have jailed the CEO. They declared the transaction as a criminal enterprise. And I'm subject to being fixed.
Yes.
So I said, this is fabulous, I think. I contacted Bank of America, who was ordered by the federal government to assume all of Countrywide loans because of the Countrywide loan scandal, amongst other loan issues at that time with America's loan and real estate market collapsing. And they were going to fix. I said, I liked my mortgage. And they said, but it's interest only. I said, yes. I'm a high-income earner. I'm a W-2. I don't have deductions. I have my mortgage. The higher, the better, and the more interest I could get. And I think it was 6% flat or 5.9, which was slightly better than the going rate at the time because I was a preferred banking customer. So I signed this loan. I paid it for, I'm losing track of the number of years, about 6 years. And I get this letter. So they say to me, Mr. Frishman, this is a frontline staffer at Bank of America, whoever answered the phone number I called on from the letter that said, I am a victim. They're going to fix me. I said, well, all right. What could be better than this straight mortgage that I have? Well, no, most people wouldn't like your mortgage, Marcus, but you do for usual factual circumstances that are unusual to repeat themselves amongst other borrowers. Well, all right. So if you can make do I have an option? Yes, you do. You can take it or leave it, but there's a process. Do you want to enter it? Sure. Okay. So they gave me a list of documents I had to submit. I was current on my mortgage. I had never been a day late or a dollar short on my mortgage. And then they say to me, but you have to go 3 months delinquent before we can enter you into the program. I said, why would I do that? Well, that's the program. Now, federal government created this program, and it had this technical requirement. And I said, well, that's all. Now, I'm in government, right? A long time. I know that's not the goal. Is not to really help people. The goal is to discourage people. Remember, I've already been determined to be a victim. I have the criminal countrywide loan, and I got to go delinquent 3 months. So I do. I go delinquent 3 months on my mortgage. Now, under the law at the time, they wouldn't report that as negative to your credit bureau. It would have no negative effect. And in fact, you're being reported as current or frozen. I forget but it wasn't a negative report. I think they were reporting you as current by federal mandate, by the way. And I entered the program. And here's what it was. Because my property values had collapsed, one of the components was if property values have collapsed, and they did, you would be able to refinance your loan in what's called an updated mortgage. Not a modification. That's a little different. Those are usually for people that are actually delinquent in their mortgage, subject to foreclosure. This was an updated mortgage invitation. So, okay. And they said, well, we're going to update your mortgage, and it will lower your payment because you're going to have principal reduction. The law says, federal law, the property, it doesn't matter what you paid. It didn't matter it didn't matter what the loan amount was. Didn't matter what the loan amount was. It mattered what your value was on the home. So they would do an appraisal, and the new loan would be 90% of the appraised value. 90% of loan to value, it's called in their lingo. So you could have $1 million home, but if the property value dropped to $500,000, and your loan was $1 million that you're paying on, your new loan, do the math, Archie, but your new loan is $400,000 plus. If your property value collapsed to $500,000, you get it? So they're going to revamp, they're going to completely wipe out what you owe. They're going to revamp your property at 90% of the current market value, and that's your new loan. By the way, that was a major collapse for me. The math was, let me think. About $500,000. I had $500,000 collapse in value. I didn't buy it as an investment anyway. I didn't care. It was my home. But they said your new mortgage will be reduced. Well, do the math. That would have been substantial. A bit more than 2/3 of my payment would be reduced. Okay. Oh, and by the way, in the meantime, you don't have to pay anything. Oh, thank you. Just keep up in your property taxes and your homeowners association fees. All right. So I did. So I'm in queue to have this wonderful modification, and it took 14 months. 14 months of not paying the mortgage, and then they reinstated me, updated my mortgage, and my interest rate went from about 6 to 2% for 7 years. And then 2% would jump to 5.9 for the life of the loan. I'm telling this story because there is a punchline you will not believe. The life of the loan. The payment would drop substantially. There'll be no late fees, no roll-ins of the 14 months that I didn't pay. The loan is just a new amount, and it's extended. It was a 30-year loan. They extended it to 40 years. They reduced the interest rate to 2% flat for 7 years, and then the market rate after that for the life of the loan. They removed all the 3 months delinquent, but it took them 14, so moved 14 months. I was given a new loan. It was fabulous. My payment, was like paying a phone bill. I'm joking, but it was very low. And there I'm happy. I'm making my payments again over a little more than 1 year. And then I watched the president of Bank of America, that tool, I'm not going to say his name. He's on in front of Congress, and he says that he had been, their bank had been fixing these problems with the countrywide loans, the victims, which was me, supposedly. I was very happy being a victim, I guess. But they said, we're doing principal reduction willy-nilly. But when I got my fix, it was missing principal reduction. After all that, sure, the interest rate was better. They extended it for 40 years from 30. My payment collapsed, so I was pretty well taken. I said to good old Jessica Gadang at Bank of America, why didn't I get the principal reduction? Well, Marcus, we got you to where you needed to be without it. I'll never forget the quote. She put it in writing. We got you to where you needed to be without principal reduction. Okay, whatever. And it was a lower payment. It was fine. So I signed it. I paid it for about 1.5 years, not quite. When I saw that tool, the president of Bank of America, on television before Congress, saying that he is instituting principal reduction willy-nilly, and I thought to myself, I was the poster child. I got every component in its maximum on this modification.
Yeah.
Well, I contacted Barbara Dower. Who's Barbara Dower? Vice President of Bank of America. She happens to live locally in California. I've met her a few times, so you wouldn't have remembered me, but I reached out to her. I knew how to get a hold of her. And I said, look, there's a mistake in my updated mortgage, which we now know is called modifications. And she said, well, what was the problem? I said, well, you forgot to implement principal reduction. So yeah. I have a wonderful interest rate. I have a wonderful extension of the term, and I didn't pay for 14 months. Great, but I want my principal reduction because my loan will collapse to under market value, blah, blah. She said, we can't guarantee anything, but re-enter the program. Okay, thank you. Re-enter the program. Had to go 3 months delinquent on the mortgage again. Again, they don't report that to the bureaus by federal order. It's a fix. So they agreed that they didn't fully correct it, didn't provide me the principal reduction that I was qualified for, and they put me in queue. At 22 months of not paying a mortgage, I contacted her office again, and I said, it's 22 months. And she says to me, Marcus, you're in queue for the big settlement. The government has updated its benefits to us. We're actually going to get a benefit for this fix. We're going to get money, hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're going to give it to you and other people in a principal reduction. When before we had to eat that, now we don't have to, but there's a process you have to wait. Okay, so I kept waiting. Just under 30 months of not paying the mortgage, they sold my mortgage. I got a letter. I said, well, I called the Barbara. She said, we didn't sell your mortgage. You're not in that group. Then they came back and said, oops. Oops. They actually used that word. We sold your mortgage. We're trying to retrieve it back because we have to do the principal reduction. Well, 2 weeks go by and they absolutely make very clear they can't retrieve my sold mortgage.
Fuck.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So you sold the mortgage Now remember how this goes. I had a mortgage from Countrywide.
How much was it for? How much was this mortgage for? Can you mention an amount?
I'm not revealing numbers. I'm not revealing numbers here because there are government agencies monitoring, and we don't want to be in conflict with anything we might have reported. So, and the government always fights conflict. But it's very funny. The first loan I liked, they said I was a victim of. They redid it and issued a new one that I eventually paid on for 1.5 years until I complained, and then they put me back in queue for the modification. So the first loan was what was called satisfied. It was paid in full, reported on my credit bureau, Countrywide Mortgages, paid in full. When that report occurred on my credit bureau, it lasted 6 or 7 years before it dropped as a satisfied mortgage. Mm-hmm. The new mortgage never appeared on my credit bureau, and I was paying on it 1.5 years. And then I went to complain. You should have principal reductioned me, and that would have reduced my loan amount and my payment. And they agreed, and they put me in queue, and then the word was mistakenly. mistakenly sold, that's the official word in the letter, mistakenly sold your mortgage, but the federal law, the new federal law, special at the time for all of this, required that the new mortgage servicer, you understand there's a servicer and there's a mortgage carrier, they sold it to U.S. Bank. The servicer became Mr. Cooper. It was called Countrywide until they changed their name to something stupid like Mr. Cooper. They are like the third largest servicer in the world. They are big. They took over my loan, and the federal law required continuity of updated mortgage, continuity of modification take place if a loan gets sold in the midst of the pending matter. So they said, Bank of America did, they will take care of you. Barbara Dower, the vice president, personally told me that. I was assured that in writing by her Indian assistant. Beautiful name, that woman, and that letter. And then, Archie, I was taken over by a place called Mr. Cooper, who services for U.S. Bank. And I waited, and I waited, and I was in constant communication. But you remember where we left off. I was required to not pay the mortgage, even though I was always current on my mortgage, for a day late, dollar short. So I have not paid the mortgage. I have not paid the mortgage since 2009. And that did not include the 14 months previous that I didn't pay previous mortgage. All right. This is getting confusing. That means I believe 18 years and 4 months of not paying my mortgage. And then when I started to complain, I don't know what year that was, 2010, when I started to complain that no action was being taken, they started to pay my property taxes. Now, I immediately notified them when they took over that they had the wrong mortgage. I told them, hey, the Countrywide mortgage was paid in full and satisfied, and it was updated with a new Bank of America loan. But you seem to be servicing the original Countrywide mortgage that has nothing owed on it. It's been satisfied. It's paid in full. Here's the proof. My credit report shows it. Here's the letters from Bank of America. So you need to fix this and just get my loan properly adjusted, which meant, you know, the correct terms and conditions, the correct contract, whatever. The bank chose to be silent on that topic until 2024. When I say silent, I certainly wasn't, but they would never comment on it. They would just, I'm not going to bore you with the multiple 2 or 3 communications a month, 15 hours a month that took place between all of this time to present, but I had to do this. I had some duties to preserve my legal rights. Now, under California law, this is a law that affects this bank. It supersedes, actually, federal law because it's so strong. California law says that unless you're foreclosed, you can't recover on servicing errors of a bank. If you take action in advance, which I could have done, of any foreclosure, which they should do when you don't pay your mortgage, but they never did to me. If you don't pay your mortgage, you get foreclosed generally. But in my case, I was pending modification for a mortgage that was already paid for. So they never did anything, and they offered to pay my property taxes, and they did that. I did continue to pay the association dues. So no mortgage is being paid. They're paying the property taxes, and that's 18 years and 4 months total with the 2 adjustments. Now, they never update my mortgage. They never modify the mortgage. They don't do anything other than we have an agreement that I don't have to pay the mortgage. I can continue to live there, and they will pay the property taxes, but they won't resolve the underlying problem. They won't comment on it other than they will not. The resolution is pending.
Sure.
In 2024, I got a letter, as I always do, every month or every couple of weeks, but this one was different. The letter admitted error under the RESPA law, the federal RESPA law that requires them to admit error. And it says in just a few sentences in a 3-page letter that was on another subject, it says, we have failed to service, the correct mortgage. There's reference to that. I'm in shock. They have finally admitted this. That only took 17 years. So I write them and I ask for clarification. There's a person's signature. I'm talking with the woman who signed it on the phone. I'm emailing her personally. I'm writing her. I'm writing her superiors. I'm writing the president of the bank again. And no one will respond. They're acknowledging the letters, but they won't comment on because I believe, and I accused them. I said, you have released the truth by accident. You didn't mean to. Now, I wanted to get back to something. Under California law and federal law, if you sue a bank in advance of foreclosure for servicing errors, damages are money, and you will argue that you've lost your equity or something, that you deserve money. But it will be balanced against the amount that you haven't paid them. And technically, I hadn't paid them. And so they could come up with some fakakta number by the way, that would have been just under $1 million that I didn't pay. I know that number. And they would come up with that, and it would offset my damages to an unknown degree. So sure. you can't take action in advance of the foreclosure. Now, but after the foreclosure, if there is one, California law is quite sweet. With any particular servicing error that's listed, and there's 8 or 9 listed, and I had 2 or 3 of them, 3 of them at least affected me, clearly. If you have a servicing error as defined by the law, and I did, that's unquestionable, they admitted those errors, you can recover full market value in a court action. And the only requirement to enter that action is that 1, you haven't actually paid your mortgage. You have to say you haven't. And 2, you have to have been foreclosed upon. And then the best news is the bank cannot come in and say, hey, Your Honor, he still owes us 1.3 million, 2.9 million, whatever, fill in the blank. They can't do it. It's not relevant. The amount they say you owe, even if legitimate, even if I conceded it was correct, is not owed to them and cannot be considered in this trial. In this trial, if it ever happened, because they would settle out of court with their own attorneys advising them in the hallway to cut me a check for market value, and you either get market value or you don't. That's all it's about. Not pain and suffering, it's market value. And I would have taken that market value in the hallway by their own attorneys advising them to pay me had they foreclosed and had I taken the action within 2 years against them. All right, so that is the law. Here's what happened. I alerted the bank that I left. I had no duty to do that, but I'm a guy that, I'm transparent, and I don't want anything to ever come back to haunt me or used against me. So I go beyond the law. I don't go to gray areas. I stay in the green. So I sent a letter, and I said, I have left the home with intentions of renting, and my rental property, which will rent extraordinarily high, will frankly reduce my damages, reduce what you will owe me in a courtroom. And I will take you, they know I will take them to court if ever they will foreclose. Well, apparently, and I should tell you one more thing. I've actually had an active foreclosure sale date, published and active with a trustee since 2009.
Yes.
That date keeps changing. They keep moving it or canceling it or moving it, and they never do foreclose. I mean, foreclosure would have been my gift at some point because I lost interest in living in the home about 5 years ago. So anytime after that, a foreclosure would have been my gift. The action would have been filed, and I would recover full market value. And the reason their attorneys would pay me in a hallway before they go into a judge, is because the judge would issue sanctions. The judge could issue punitive damages, however unlikely. So to avoid the certainty of sanctions, to avoid the possibility of punitive damages, they would just cut me a check for the full market value in the hallway by their own lawyers advising them. I know because I've researched what they do when they make these mistakes. Now, that they decided that the pending foreclosure date that I had, but it's not of record on the credit bureau. My credit's beautiful. They chose to actually foreclose on it late last year. But within 18 days of the foreclosure and removal of my name on the property and the hiring of by the way, they didn't sell it to a third party. They used the foreclosure process to only remove my name. They kept it in their name, the bank, and then they hired a broker to sell it independently. That's how they like to do it in California because the market is fairly hot. So this special broker reaches out to me, and of course, I'm excited. He's never seen anyone so excited. Mr. Frishman, you're so happy. I said, I have been waiting for this. Yes. And I told him my story in short. And he said, okay, well, we're going to have to get you out. I said, I need 3 months to move. And they said, that's fine. Yeah, they gave me the 3 months. Within 18 days, he was fired. They fired good old Oscar, their employee, to sell the home. And then they reverted. It's called reversion. I learned a legal word along the way. They reverted my name back onto the property, wrote me a letter and told me very honestly that the reason as I asked, why would you do this? The reason we did it, and we did it within the time frame, because at some point we can't revert. We reverted your name back on the property because we realized we'd be subject to the California Homeowner Bill of Rights. Thank you, Kamala Harris. She was our attorney general. She wrote the law and it was updated in 2019. Well, after she left California, Kamala Harris wrote that law protecting people like me and other people that really needed other types of help. And they put my name back on the property, and there I was in the same status again, knowing they will never foreclose. I will never have to pay my mortgage. But let's tell you the bad news. The bad news means I can't avail of my equity. The bad news means I can't sell the home. Yes, I can live there without paying, as I have 18 years. I can rent it out and recover a massive sum of money every month on a rental. But they didn't. Our agreement was that I wouldn't pay. And when I alerted them, it's time for a life change. I've got a beach pad. I have a place in the Philippines. I've got to go. I have a tension of Florida as an option. And they were very kind in that letter, oddly enough. We wish you well on your new adventure, but we will regretfully not let you not live in that house. Not live in that house. So they did foreclose. Oscar's back. They hired Oscar. And Oscar and I meet tomorrow because there's a shocking thing happening. They told me if I left a little sooner than my 3-month request, which is tomorrow, would be their date, the 16th, 14th, 15th, 16th is Monday, pardon me, Monday, that I will receive a hefty sum of money. So I said, send me the release. So I looked at the release, and it releases them of nothing. I can still sue them. They're calling it cash for keys. They're issuing a 1099. It's taxable. I tried to get out of that. That was impossible. It may not actually be taxable, but there is a 1099 issue. That's a tax document that generally makes things taxable. Sure. Some ways out of it. But the point is, it's a hefty sum of money, and I'm waiting to sign the release. I'm looking at the release, and it doesn't release them. It just has commitments to me. I have to leave the home in a certain condition. There's a list of things I have to do. I did it all. And then good old Oscar and I had our walkthrough last week early. He was satisfied. He signed off. And on Monday, they're going to deliver a large check to me. I'm in absolute shock because of the nature of the release. They have failed to ask me to release them of anything. I will be suing them. I've already told them in writing because I don't play games. I don't play tricks. I don't scam. Apparently they're okay with that too. So they're really screwed up. But I have left. I'm getting my a significant sum of money tomorrow. By the way, they had a 3-tier option. If I used the date that I had picked, which was I think May 12th or something, I would have gotten less money. If I used a date in April, I would have gotten more money. And if I used the date Monday morning, which I've met already, is significantly more. And it's called cash. That's what they're calling it, cash for keys.
How much money are we talking about? $1,000, $10,000, $1 million?
We're talking about No, we're not talking about $1 million, and we're not talking. I'll tell you what we're not talking about. We're not talking about my property value, or I wouldn't bother with my case, but we are talking about significant figures. So it is a mystery. Now, typically, I will tell you something. Typically, because I did some research, there is a program that once existed federally called Cash for Keys during the Obama administration, expired in 2018 in whoever was president then. But the point is that program allowed for mandatory amounts of from $10,000 to $50,000, or was it $10,000 to $25,000? I am forgetting. I'm sorry. That expired. So now, when typical foreclosures occur, you'll be lucky. You will likely get nothing, and you'll be lucky to get a quick $5,000 just to get you out, to make sure you don't break the kitchen's microwave or something. And so they don't have to initiate an eviction process, which is what they would do to people that don't leave. And good old Oscar told me a story. I'll end with this. There's some lady up the block that he has to deal with. And he said, Marcus, you are such a pleasure. I went up there to essentially do the same thing, but she's a real eviction. She doesn't pay her mortgage, and not eviction. Sorry, she's a real foreclosure. She doesn't pay her mortgage. And Oscar said to me, she came out with a camera screaming rape, and that poor lady will be getting a notice of eviction shortly, and she'll have to deal with that. But in my case, I'm getting the money, and I think they're trying to. My guess is their attorneys are trying to diminish their responsibility, and thinking that I will go away. Just rolling the dice. But one thing for certain is they didn't want me renting the property. That seems to be the trigger, and it's not seems to be. It was clear in writing.
So what are you going to do? So you got a super chat. Chicken the Duck, $7.50. Love the Math Show. Math, do you think living well is the best revenge? Thank you, Arch, for your streaming.
I think living well is the best revenge, but I'm not a revengeful guy.
So you haven't paid the mortgage for 18 years?
2009 was the last time I paid.
Have you put the money away that you'd normally pay for the mortgage into another bank account?
Interesting you say that. So it was advised that I do that, and I did, and I got it to I think the number was 100. I'll tell you a number. I got it to 120,000, a special bank account where I paid the mortgage, and I got it to $120,000, Archie. And then I'm forgetting the year right now. That would have been pretty quick, though. I don't know. I'm going to make up a year, 2010 or 11. I then spent it. I said, these people are nuts. I'm not keeping that money in the bank.
So do you technically own that house, or who owns that house then?
I've always owned the house, and of course, my name is on the deed. Until
how much deposit did you put into it? What deposit did you put?
That's an excellent, and this goes to Archie being a very smart man, because a lot of people that would be in my situation would have used proceeds from a previous home to put into a new home, and it might be half or hundreds of thousands of dollars. I didn't. I kept my previous home in Calabasas. I used that as a rental property, and I used no proceeds. And because I bought from a builder, I put 3% down. I was by the way, the standard was 5%, but I got a special circumstance employee discount because I knew I knew Chappelle Industries.
How much was the place approximately when you bought it?
It was just under $1 million.
Okay.
Now
what's it worth now?
A lot more. It's an executive style home, meaning, just so we're clear, it has a very small backyard. It has 12 rooms, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and it has the side yards are common property, meaning the HOA manages it. There are no front lawns because the homes are in a courtyard facing each other as opposed to facing the street. So that's how you get the significant piece of home that I got for the low price I paid, because there's virtually no land associated with it other than the backyard and the common property. Sure. And it was a wonderful they were called executive courtyard homes. And
so tell me this, that home itself now, it's considerably worth a lot more money.
Yes.
So they're wanting you to walk away from it, aren't they?
No, they've essentially taken my name off the property. They're giving me a chunk of money to move physically. Well, let me be clear. I've already moved out, but to turn over keys and have no connection with the property.
What do you see yourself doing? Are you happy to do that, or?
Well, yes, because I've been waiting for I can't take legal action against them until they have done this, and they just did it. So I have 2 years to file the action. I will file it this year. I'm prepared. It's a simple action under the Homeowner Bill of Rights, and it will recover full market value. I won't be claiming pain and suffering. You don't get that in that action.
What's your lawyer's going to cost for that action, Bart?
I will be doing it myself, but the figurehead lawyer, I'm giving him 25%. He's been in standby for years. He's one of my best friends. So he'll get 25% of whatever the market value is. I'm not saying whatever the recovery is, because it's either market value or nothing. It's all or nothing under this particular unique law that only allows you to go after a bank after a foreclosure has been completed if in fact there were servicing errors. Well, a pretty big, by the way, the servicing error is so substantial, there is nothing more substantial than mine. They were servicing a mortgage that had been paid in full, and they don't have the real mortgage. That's why they never required that I pay any loan amounts, and that's why they paid my property taxes, and that's why they never foreclosed on me in all these years. That was the agreement. But if you would have stayed there, you could have stayed rent free. I was rent free for 17 years plus the year and a half that we did on the first modification. Remember, I did do a proper modification. That apparently is what the confusion was. When Bank of America fixed my countrywide mortgage, which was viewed as a criminal enterprise, and I was a victim of Countrywide by federal order. It had to be fixed. And I didn't even want it fixed, but they did it. When they fixed it, they had to pay off the first mortgage. It's called satisfying it, and then give me a new mortgage. Well, I got that new mortgage, and I paid on it a year and a half before I complained that I needed a better modification with the principal reduction that they promised. They admitted they had a mistake, that they didn't add the principal reduction component. So they entered me back into modification.
Basically, you entered into a interest-only mortgage. That's basically what you got.
The first mortgage was fabulous. And let me go back to your question. It was interest only. You asked how much I put down. I put 3%. The reason I could do that is a builder allows that when you buy a private home with a private owner. No. And if you ordered, in fact, if in most instances, because I made 16 offers on homes, all in the city of Calabasas, and I was turned down by each one of them. And when I called the last broker, you're my 16th offer. I know it's a hot market, but I've learned that you actually took an offer less than mine. Why would you have done that? And he said to me, this broker, in 2004, Marcus, you had a weak offer. I said, how do I have a weak offer? I'm paying you. You're asking about $120,000 higher than the last sale ever. I'm paying you $60,000 above your asking price. Why would you say no? He said, because you weren't coming in with any money. You wanted to do 5% down. So what? My bank is paying for it. He said, well, things fall out of escrow. We like to see a chunk of money. We like to see proceeds coming from another residence. I said, I don't need to use. The wealthy don't use proceeds. Whatever. So I realized what he said, and he gave me a hint. He said, you know who you could buy a house from? I said, who? A builder. Go to a builder. They'll do 5%. Easy. They won't care. You won't view you as a weak offer because you're not putting 30, 40, 50% down like everybody else was. Okay. So, and I liked interest only for tax reasons. I won't explain that to you here, but in America.
We got another super chat. Chief Tit, is the accumulation of the interest payments and the full unpaid capital loan amount more or less than the current value? Okay. You're killing me.
So, all right. I know this. I know the answer. I know what he's asking. So understand, Chief Tit, they're servicing the loan that was paid in full. But let's pretend like their bill does every month. They do send me a bill. Their bill every month goes up by the amount of money that I don't pay in the loan, and it goes up by the taxes that they pay twice a year, and it goes up with miscellaneous reasonable expenses that they incur as a result of my status. Okay. That number is hundreds of thousands of dollars above the actual market value. Otherwise, I would have taken a reverse mortgage. I don't know if you know what that is, but in America,
yes, I know what a reverse mortgage
you can have
is.
a mortgage that doesn't make you pay anything as long as you're of age. I forget what that is, 55 years old. You can get a mortgage and you cannot pay anything, or it will pay you the equity every month. I would have done one of those, and I offered that as a solution. By the way, I should tell you something. I had actually offered very early on to pay them in full on the fake first mortgage, and offered to pay half of the arrears. You hear that number? The full amount of the first mortgage that I told you was satisfied already, because it's the only one that seems to really exist in their mind. Okay, I'll pay it, and then I'll give you half of the arrears. Because I should have been paying something, right? But yet I wanted to negotiate and compromise, and they actually said to me, and it was the law. I checked it. They're not allowed to negotiate. They can't. It's federally prohibited. So even if I had offered 98% of that massive number, payment in full in a check, it would be deficient, and they would send me a bill for the balance. There's no negotiating. It is federally prohibited, because I can't benefit under federal law under this circumstance in a loan. That's why I can only benefit after a foreclosure takes place. It is complex, but I have become, let me just assure you, I call myself a specialist of a lot of things that I'm not an expert at. I am an absolute expert at this situation, this law. And California's law is better than the federal law. It mimics it and then enhances it, and it's fabulous. Nothing in the federal law conflicts with it. So I'm going into state court against this bank. They are called U.S. Bank. Their servicer is Mr. Cooper. And oddly enough, they just changed their name. They didn't do a merger with Rocket Mortgage. They changed their name because they want to start selling mortgages on the open market, and they never did do that. They just refinanced their existing mortgages. Rocket Mortgage is a much smaller company, but well known because it's a mortgage provider. So they just merged. I have a feeling some of that, all of this happening at once, the change and their merger, and me informing them I'm going to use it as a rental property. I'm done with this nonsense.
How much do you expect to get out of these fuckers?
Full market value. I can only get full market value under the statute. It's either all or nothing. I have to show that they
minus the payments you haven't made, or just full market value.
No, that's not admissible. The amount that you're in fact, to get this, I have to prove that I haven't made payments. You're not entitled to it unless the foreclosure was legitimate in the eyes of the bank. Then you delegitimize it by showing there was a servicing error, and then they just give you market value, and the fact you didn't pay them does not diminish.
Does that mean you're not going to get this house, are you? This house is not going to be your house.
Oh, no. One thing, under no circumstance can anyone recover a home, even if the bank stood up tomorrow and said, oh, it's a mistake, we agree. They don't unwind.
But you think you'll get market value less any payments that you owe them, or no?
No, I just told you, Archie, it's not admissible, the amount I owe them in that specific homeowner bill of rights transaction. That's the beauty of it. That's the special component of it. That they can't.
So do you think they will settle before court, or do you think you're going to have to play this out?
Well, it will have to go into court, but I'm certain they won't walk in to see the judge, because the the law requires sanctioning for each violation. And I'm going to submit, by the way, the number of violations, just so you know, are unlimited. They're forever. My case is in queue in the law offices, and we're going to use 12 violations. I could use 112, but at some point the attorney and I said, well, there's just too much paperwork. We'll just use 12. Nobody, let me put it this way, Archie, when you go in and win on a case like this, you need one violation. I'm using 12, and one of them is miraculous. One of them is their mistaken letter that was issued to me saying that they have servicing the wrong mortgage. If that's not even on the list of likely violations under the statute because it's so outrageous. It's just it was unanticipated, but they fit the other one.
What do you hope to do with the money you get from this?
Well, the money I'm picking up tomorrow, or Monday rather, I'm going to put in Barclays Bank at 4.6% interest. It's just a savings account, but Barclays has a savings account at 4.6% interest. And I'm not a risk. I don't invest. It's not a thing I do. But the big bulk of the money is going to go in the same savings account. And no, I'm not going to invest it. It's not my style. I'm going to spend it. God bless America.
Yes, very, very, very. What a amazing story. They've loved your story.
I've never gone public on the story. All of my close friends have a running joke about it because Marcus doesn't pay his mortgage by bank permission, and they pay his property taxes. I'll tell you, I did have to pay the association, homeowner association. We have 2 of them. I pay them every month. It's a condition, and I stopped paying that in October, and I told them that's not right. It wasn't October, whatever the date was. Anyway, I told them if you're going to really do this, so they're now paying the HOAs. Well, they said they would. I don't know if it's current or not. I'm going to write the HOA next week because I have a good relationship with that HOA, and I want to I'm going to help them get paid if they haven't, because they'll pay them.
Interesting story there. We've got a few good comments there. We've got people who said, Kettle of Fish says, bottom line of the story, I feel bad for the bank for not getting paid back on a mortgage he took out.
Well, where's the mortgage that I took out? It was the one that was supposed to be modified and sent to me to pay. Also, remember something. I offered to pay them in full on the first mortgage and half of the second, I'm sorry, not the second. I mean, half of the rears, the delete. I'm going to tell you why I did that.
They said they can't negotiate.
They can't negotiate. And by the way, you know who would have done that? Wells Fargo. I was approved by Wells Fargo, and they said, well, we can't pay more for the property than it's worth, but we'll do the first mortgage, and here's the number extra. So now it's a much bigger mortgage. I offered that to them. I also, along the line, I had an investor who was willing to pay about the same amount. I proposed that too. They didn't. No, there's no negotiating. I had to have them foreclose, and they would never do it. I will tell you this. About 5 years ago, I wouldn't have wanted foreclosure. I considered it my home. It's where I wanted to be. But I had made a decision about 5 years ago. I have to transition. I have to get out. I'm thinking of Florida or whatever, and I'm in a transition near Beach Pad. But I thought I was going to be renting out my home. But when I informed them, that was a breach of my deal to not pay my mortgage. Remember, I'm not paying my mortgage at their direction. Let's not confuse this. I write a letter once a year. It's just the once a year letter. There are letters.
So what would have happened? What would have happened if you would have died and your estate took over?
I write a letter once a year asking to pay my mortgage. And I get an answer back. It's one of the few times they respond to me in formal copy and paste answers instead of very specific, detailed letters. And it says, essentially, Mr. Frishman, if you pay your mortgage current, we cannot update your mortgage and modify it. So you'll be pulled from the program. Making your mortgage current will then require you to pay the current mortgage moving forward. But remember, that would require also to pay all the rears. The rears were approaching $800,000. The rears, the amount I haven't paid is approaching $800,000. That's why I said a minute ago it's almost $1 million. It's 800. I'll give you that number. It's 800,000 approximately that I have not paid them in the 18 years. But by agreement, by their permission, because nobody in the world would be allowed to not pay their mortgage and have the mortgage company pay their property taxes every year current, unless there's a reason that they are at fault. And they are. They're evil, they're wrong, and they've admitted it finally in writing in 2024 in one letter where there was a paragraph They will not explain it, but I believe the representative told the truth who signed that letter, and she wasn't allowed to, and she retired afterwards, and I have her cell phone number, and she'll be a wonderful witness. She slipped in writing that letter with some truth that should have been revealed to me years ago. In the end, they can't find, I know they can't find the real mortgage because they said that years ago. There is no record of the 2009 updated mortgage. I mean, that's what they repeated until 2024. They denied my dispute, but allowed me not to pay by agreement. And then in 2004 admitted they did this thing to me. Again, I believe
Maybe
the admission
would have been better just to stay there, just to live there for free.
Well, Archie, it was, one of my attorneys said to me, remember, I do all this. I advise them. These attorneys don't advise me about nothing. I need to occasionally put something on their letterhead because, I have to use them, their signature. But one of the attorneys, George, he says to me, well, you've already won. And he told me that in 2011. Well, George, what do you mean I've already won? Well, you haven't paid your mortgage. You're not paying your rent. The real mortgage is gone. They won't let you pay the fake mortgage by agreement. And you've won. I said, George, look, I've lost my equity. And every month that I don't pay them, the amount I owe them, at least on paper, the fake number that I don't owe, I actually owe. And it increases every month. And now, and it had always, by the way, that number quickly exceeded market value and then continues to exceed. That's why the house can never be sold by me or them for any profit. If you think they still haven't sold the house to any third party. They used a transaction to only take my name off it.
Are you going to leave your BMW in the garage when they sell it?
Oh, Archie, I got to show you something. May I?
Yes,
it's sad. It's sad. It's very sad. Hold on. It's right here. Stand by, please, because I can hardly believe it myself. And I had some other pictures to show you, so I had them in queue. Here it is, Archie. Just look very closely. Cars for Kids. Picked up the car. I donated it to Cars for Kids.
And you got the tax deduction.
Well, the way it apparently works is when it's sold, they'll give me the tax deductible document for the value of its sale. And it's in auction already. The paperwork was completed. At Cars for Kids, it does things fast. They picked up the car. They didn't even need the pink slip. But I said, I have the pink slip. He said, okay, sign it here and sign it there. I did. So
Yankee Doodle, $5. In 2008, I negotiated my second mortgage with Country Ride from 97 to 22K.
There you go.
Those were good times to screw the banks. God bless.
Well, it was screwing the banks by federal order. So this guy, whoever he is, he gets it. The time frame is exact. And that they were ordered to correct these mortgages. They did correct mine. And it was a good one, but they didn't include principal. And I wanted principal reduction. So I went back into the program to get that. And that's when, frankly, I'll sum it up. I am, until the conclusion, which occurred recently, I've been pending the 2009 updated modification. I've been pending all this time. That's what the bank would say. The bank would say, Mr. Frishman is in pending modification, and we are considering it. Well, it's 18 years. Now, yes, I get letters. Please send this document, that. I update the documents. They expire. It was just a game because our side agreement was I wouldn't have to pay, and they will pay the property taxes, and they won't foreclose. But I wanted foreclosure because under California law, the Homeowner Bill of Rights lets me collect full market value in a court, and I will be doing that this year. I'll be filing. But Monday morning, I pick up a massive check from them without a release. I mean, what kind of bank? Well, I signed a release, but the release doesn't release them of anything. It commands me to do a few things, and I've done them. And I won't get the money unless I've done them. So they've approved I've done them, and I've signed it. And Monday, the man, Mr. Oscar, will be coming with the check. He's Filipino, by the way, but very nice man. I met him for the first time last week.
Marcus Allen Frishman, that's the show for today.
1 hour story.
1 hour. That's a great story. I love it. I think I might work it out over the weekend. Thank you so much, Marcus, and we will see you next weekend, the 21st.
I'm Marcus Allen.
Thank you so much. You're Marcus Allen Frishman, and I'm not. See you later, guys.
I'm not wearing makeup like some have accused. Bye, Archie.
Bye-bye. Hi, guys. It's Archie Luxury. Guys, I want to talk to you about David SW. David SW, David SW. Guys, if you are in America, if you are looking for a Rolex watch of your dreams, in fact, if you're looking for a contemporary modern wristwatch, I strongly advise you to look at David SW. Guys, don't play the dealer games. Don't bring in chocolates or Krispy Kremes for your dealer hoping to get a Rolex at retail. It's futile. Please, guys, save your dignity. Keep some pride. Go to David SW. I would highly recommend David SW, David SW. If you're in America and you're looking for a watch, go to David SW, David SW, David SW.